Recently, I started thinking about modding handhelds again, and I realized I haven't done anything with the PlayStation Portable. I used to play on my brother's a lot years ago, and when I asked if he still had his, he said he actually had two, and both probably had dead batteries, which they did. So when I borrowed it, I thought I'd at least find out if I wanted to think about purchasing one and get into modding it. And to be honest, even though I do think it's a brilliant little handheld, I found it to be kinda chunky, and I didn't really like holding it or using it as much as I remember. I thought maybe the light and bright models would be the ones that clicked for me, but they just didn't seem that different ergonomically. And that's when I looked more into the Go. The PSP Go is essentially the PSP without the UMD drive and is much smaller than the previous models. It was pretty ahead of its time, but it ended up being a complete flop. I think the PSP Go makes a lot more sense now than it did back then, as we're moving towards a digital-only era of media with lightning-fast internet speeds and massive portable storage. If, for example, Nintendo made a Switch Go, I think there would be a lot of people that would think that's a really cool idea. This is kind of the trend with Sony and their handhelds. They were brilliant designs that could have been so much more with the right angle. I purchased a PSP Go in relatively good condition from eBay, and I'd actually never seen one in person before. I was really surprised how small this thing is, and immediately I just wanted to compare it to the Miyoo Minis. It's so light and compact, and its design still looks really appealing and something I just want to hold and use. I read people find it very uncomfortable to use. I actually find it quite nice to hold and play, bar some games that require lots of D-pad movement. In which case I find that since the D-pad isn't just one solid piece, it can get a little frustrating to work with. I'd be interested in some kind of modification, like a flat solid piece of plastic to just slide on top so I can roll my thumb around better. But you can just pop the screen open and put on a stick-on D-pad, and it works very well. It just has to be taken off each time. With PS1 games, you can opt to use the circle pad for movement, which can be a lot nicer instead. Obviously, the best part is the sliding screen. It still feels really fun and stylish to use. I also like that you can set it to wake up when you slide it open and sleep when it's closed. It makes jumping in and out of a game really simple, as you can just carry on where you left off. And once it's open, you have access to the shallow but practical buttons. I can see why people wouldn't enjoy these, so that could be a deal breaker. Personally, I find it nice to play, and with my fingers resting on the shoulder buttons effortlessly. I don't even think the analog circle pad is that bad, and I don't really have a problem using it, but I know people do not like its implementation. I think my biggest gripe here is that the start and select buttons don't feel very nice to use. They're the shallowest buttons of the lot and don't feel very responsive, even if they work just fine. Going around the device, we can see the power slider on the right. It can lock down and make the buttons not respond if you don't want accidental inputs. And sliding it up is basically how any power button works on devices like this. On top, we have the shoulder buttons. I think they feel really nice actually, and push down all around the shoulder. There's a brightness button on the left, volume buttons in the middle, and a musical button on the right which can mute the device when held and come back on when held again. On the left, we have the memory card slot and a wireless switch to turn the wireless on and off. Sony's memory cards aren't very large and are very expensive for what they are now, so we actually have a mod we can do to use a 128GB SD card instead using custom firmware. And on the bottom is a headphone jack and the large proprietary connection to charge the device and transfer data. The connection goes to USB and can connect to a PC or a charging block to charge the PSP. Also, this device came with the original but dead battery for the system. The seller told me that they replaced the battery with a newer one that should be better, so I'm not sure if it has more battery life than a stock one would. There are battery mods people can do. I saw a device that had a thicker 3D printed back shell for housing a Vita battery mod for even more battery life, but I felt the thickness of that is not why I wanted to get a Go in the first place. So, what does the PSP Go do? Well, it plays all your PSP catalog just like you'd expect, and it can play any PS1 game, but you'll either have to have the eBoot file from the store or one that you make yourself from an ISO file. Since the PlayStation Store was shut down for PSP, you can't buy games anymore, but there is an app that allows you to access the store still if you can get your Go to work wireless, or you could just do it from your PC. I wasn't willing to mess around with my router to get the wireless working on my Go, but that doesn't bother me personally. That's all cool in itself, but you also have access to a variety of retro emulators. The limit is basically Nintendo 64, which really doesn't work well at all, and not something I'm going to showcase in the video, but older stuff is pretty solid. There are some SNES games that struggle to play well, which is a bit of a shame, but it's only a handful. The star of the show here for me is GBA emulation, as it fits so nice on the Go screen and functions really well. It puts it on the level of a Game Boy Micro, but with a larger screen and a much more premium feel. Honestly, if you wanted a device to play GBA games on that's very compact, I think the Go is a terrific option for this. With custom firmware, you also have access to homebrews and ports of games. Mine came already modded with custom firmware 6.61, but there are many videos online showing how simple it is to put custom firmware on your PSP. There is a site that I'll link in the video description too that has links to apps, emulators, plugins, and more. It's awesome to be able to increase the functionality of the system through mods. I have a few that I like, such as increasing how loud the PSP can go, a category system for organizing games, being able to add custom themes for navigating the PSP, and a plugin I found called CDDA Enabler, which apparently helps improve the audio of PS1 games. On top of this, I can overclock the system even higher, which makes games like Outrun perform even better than intended. What I like about this so much though, is similar to why I am really into the Miyoo Mini. It's just a very functional yet portable handheld that can do a lot of retro gaming. But the fact it can just do all the PSP you want with a widescreen and increased functionality through mods makes it a solid contender for a device you'd want to carry around in your pocket even today. If you can get one in good condition for less than $100, I think you're getting good value there. It's just to be expected that the condition of a second-hand PSP Go is not going to be in immaculate condition unless you're paying a lot for a mint condition model. It's true devices like the Mini can do SNES better, but it won't do PSP, and it wouldn't look good on its screen anyway. You would be buying a Go for its compact nature and style. I kind of love it. I'd love to see something like this in the future for Android or something. I think where we are at with handhelds now is that we have the power at more and more affordable prices, and there are so many to choose from now that as long as it is within your budget, it's mostly about functionality for your needs. And there's room in the future for niche products that generate excitement beyond the fact that the device has enough power. The Ioneo Flip DS is that kind of product, and it's cool to see something different to everything else in the market right now that creates some kind of buzz. And I'm fairly sure if Miyoo actually made a flip clamshell model of their Mini, it would sell a lot of units. But for now, I'm going to get a kick out of the Go and chuck it in my pocket whenever I'm out and about. I also don't feel very conscious about taking it out of my pocket to play in public. It just looks kind of cool and sleek. What do you think about it? Do you agree with my thoughts on handhelds going forward? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for future videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.